Okay, so this is the open match at Manor Farm Leisure run by Gary Watts, and it's on Island Pool and Middle Pool. For those who don't know me or maybe never seen this before, this is Manor Farm Leisure. Gary Watts runs the open matches. You need to book that all on Facebook. So I'm on Island Pool, for those who don't know. This is peg 32, and as you can see the wind's blowing into it, and hopefully it's going to be proper happy days. The lake did fish quite hard yesterday, but there was 17 on it, so obviously that just slows things down. Also, the wind was blowing a different direction and it wasn't so overcast, so I felt today was going to be a lot better. So just playing a carp, well, I just netted a carp now on the overshotted rig. So it's quite surprising what you can land on light gear and, well, quite sort of savage sort of presentation, to be honest. But hey, when they're having it, they're having it. And with this ripple, this like tap in stroke the long rig really does work at times. You could be one of the 73% that ain't subscribed to my channel, so I'd appreciate if you did subscribe to it, and then you won't miss out on future content. So the match started really slow, to be honest with you. This is probably about about 50 minutes into the match. Started short, one little tiny skimmer, which is never a good sign, and then I went long on the deck, no bites, and then quickly sort of tried the shallow rig, nothing. So bin that and then chucked the feeder to the far bank against the rushes and hooked one and lost it. And that was it. Looking around the lake, it was noticeable it was fishing quite hard. And then, like I say, 50 minutes into the match, started getting a few bites. And it was noticeable a lot of people started to catch as well. I mean, Steve Ford on peg 15, he started off really well. I couldn't see him, but George next to me said that he caught really well, I think on the method feeder. But looking at like Chris Cameron and Glenn Picton on pegs 4 and 6, they were struggling as well a little bit. So I guess just that time of year and stuff where fish are beginning to think about other things, and potentially a lot of them are obviously eating like the spawn of other fish, so obviously, you know, not interested in eating our bait necessarily. So as you can probably see, I'm fishing the mong. I'm not a great lover of this, but on its day it is unbeatable, and with the conditions the way they are, obviously just fishing a piece of line or an overshotted rig, which is fundamentally exactly the same thing, and then just tapping away and using a light elastic, waiting for him to pull the elastic out, can be a very productive way of fishing. Hey, if I had to do this week in, week out, I'd definitely give fishing up, but I know that this can work really well. And to be honest with you, this is how, I don't mean to drop this in, but this is how I've done the venue record on middle pool, just tap in. I should have done it sooner, I know that an even bigger weight.
Overshotted rig.
George next to me is catching well, fishing a float, and to be fair, I think fishing a float would have been better. I think this was good, but I think you could have varied it. Could have fished an overshotted rig, a mong. And then obviously then you can also use a float to chase them up and down. But I had a lot of blows. I had quite a few blows at one stage. So new fish were feeding on the deck. So I did actually put the pace rig out, and that was really good, but the fish were really small, which was a bit frustrating. So the bigger fish are definitely up in the water at the moment and down the edges, or in shallow water. So knowing these fish are going to be in shallow water, so like I said, shallow or down the edges or like against the far bank, then I've decided to give it very positive to my left. So I give it 3 pots to my left and then 1 pot to my right. I kindled a bit of bait in, and I've loose fed a few like softened 4mm pellets down the edge, some seafood expander pellets, and I just, no signs, no bites, nothing. So I felt I sort of forced my hand a little bit. I decided to give it a little bit of bait, which I was a little bit worried about because, I think you need to be a tosser rather than a big potter. So as in other words, just like toss pot it in and just be a little bit more patient, because some of these fish, especially like catching F1s, and some of these F1s are big. I think big potting, dumping loads of bait ain't the way to go at the moment. And believe me, I like feeding big. So for those who don't know me, but I think sort of feeding a medium sort of size sort of toss pot, and then just tapping that in and then sitting there and waiting is definitely sort of the way to go, to be honest. So back out on the pace rig. You had to look really carefully, but you could see there's quite a lot of fish sort of like pin pripping, if that makes sense, and little bubbles and stuff, so you knew that they were rooting around. Because obviously years ago this pace never sort of worked, but now you've got a bit more of a silty bottom, fish have got a bit more educated, a bit bigger, see a lot of pellets. I think pace is going to work really well this summer, especially if we have it hot, especially on something like middle pool. I think pace will be deadly, to be honest. I think you catch a lot of skimmers and a lot of carp and a lot of F1s. So it's time to go down that edge. There's 50 minutes to go, and I couldn't believe how good it was. I had no signs, no fish vortexing in or out, or any swirls or nothing. So I was quite surprised, to be honest with you, because it's only about sort of like 2 foot, and I'm fishing right against the side of the platform. So I've gone past it, because obviously the next angler to me is Bally on 27. So you fish like halfway to the next angler. So you are allowed to go past the pallet as long as it's not impeding on another angler. So just be courteous, innit? So rig wise, just fished 020 mainline, 016 bottom. I fished an 18 hook, so quite a small hook, and I just fished 3 maggots. Silverfish end feeding, so you're not getting bitted out at all. So you can see that this is an F1. So hell of a chunky fish that is. So in half an hour I had 7 fish, so that really did, that's pretty, well, it was half my weight. I reckon them 7 fish would have been probably about 100 pound, 50 pound, and I only weighed 100 pound in total. So yeah, so the last sort of 50 minutes was decent, 30 minutes was good, and then the last 20 minutes just faded away, to be honest. I only had 1 F1 and 1 skimmer, so a little bit disappointing, to be honest. I was hoping it would throw up a few bigger units, but I think the carp are just so switched on, they just can be very difficult to catch at times. Just know when to feed. When we pulled the nets out, everyone chucks their bait in, that's when they come in, so they just, they know when to feed and when not to.
Car. It's a bit bigger than I thought.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed the video. There's the all out, and as I always do, there's all the weights, so you can see for yourself. Might be worth pausing. Well done to George Organ and obviously Nicky Dean, who paralysed the match.